What's going on, y'all? KMBest here. For the last week, this deck has been my best deck in the game. I've put together a 37-21 record with it up into top 50. This is the new cook. The original version of the build was put together by a high infinite player named Iris, and I think the reason I want to talk about this deck is not just because it has been an incredibly successful deck to me, but because it represents something about asking the right questions in any given metagame across really any card game, but specifically Marvel Snap. And the reason I want to talk about it is largely in relation to another deck that I have recently called the best deck in the game, and talk about what it means to be a sort of spiritual successor in this way. So we are going to talk about our normal, let's break down all the cards, let's break down what this deck does, but I'm also going to talk about a mistake I made and hope that it can prevent you from making similar mistakes. The deck this is competing with, or arguably succeeding, is the Invisible Woman First Steps deck. Now, the specific thing I want to talk about here is the way in which many of the card choices in this list are vestigial. These are card choices that just sort of got left in these decks and didn't ever get fully re-examined. A good example of this is Black Cat and Hydra Bob in the context of not actually having a card like Fantasticar to make them stronger. There are, of course, other compelling reasons to be a Black Cat Hydra Bob deck, but if these cards were so good, you'd think you'd be seeing that kind of widespread adoption across a bunch of different stuff. When in reality, what's happening here is these cards were left in the deck after Fantasticar got nerfed and were good enough to see play as well in this context because of how well one-drops tend to work with a deck that is playing a Juggernaut and Thing First Steps style game plan. Now, when I look at this list, the things that stick out to me about what I want it to be, about what I want it to do, the things that aren't just normal points, are the fact that it is a Mobius, Stardust, Mercury list, which matters to some degree depending on how much you value each of these tech cards, and of course a Juggernaut Thing First Steps list. The way this deck tends to line up is it tends to be a deck that wants to put a lot of power on a couple of lanes and target the weaker lanes that your opponent has while using its tech cards to minimize the amount of output your opponent can get. But there's this inherent assumption in it that that shell, the Invisible Woman First Step shell, is the best points package to pair with it. And that is the assumption that I really want to question today, because I'd been making the same assumption, and I realized that I didn't really have a good basis to make that assumption on. This deck is questioning that assumption by saying, hey, wait a minute, what if we played a more evenly balanced method of point distribution? What if instead of using a bunch of one-drops to make sure our Thing First Steps was often active, we were using Mysterio Gwenpool instead and just had more point output, as well as the ability to be better into opposing Juggernauts because of the amount of lanes we fill up? What if all of the baseline assumptions undergirding the Invisible Woman First Steps deck are based on the premise that Invisible Woman First Steps, Thena, Havoc, and the one-drops are the best points package to play in a deck that is playing multiple proactive tech cards, Thing First Steps, and Juggernaut? What if none of that is true and we should have been doing something like this the whole time? And I think that's the specific thought process that I want to dive in on here. That is what I'm really making this video about. Like, yes, I'm making this video about a deck that did really amazingly well for me, but I'm making this video also on what analysis process you should be applying to a lot of things that are just baked in assumptions. So I hope that you guys understanding that I made this mistake will make you be easier on yourselves when you do. It's no secret that I love playing Kitty Pryde. The effective swap being made in this list is saying, all right, what if instead of playing a deck that doesn't do points unless it draws Invisible Woman First Steps, we play a deck that has multiple things that all provide us advantages, and then our one-drops are a little bit weaker? That is Kitty Pryde. So in order to make this package work, we have Elsa Bloodstone, we have Gwenpool, we have Hope Summers. Our advantages that we get are going to be larger, but the baseline cards we're playing, I mean, Kitty Pryde herself is a fair bit weaker weaker than a Black Cat, for example. That kind of stuff does matter and does genuinely stand out. The fact that we are missing these easy, cheap guys, it does show up a decent amount of the time. But we are able to make up for that with more reliable advantage gathering off of the one drop. When I talk about this sort of archetype to me being defined by like Mobius, Juggernaut, and ThingFS steps, Ghost Spider is the best friend of at least two of those cards. Ghost Spider is just honestly amazing at doing what a deck like this wants to do, which is to say, abandoning lanes that it can't win. This is a deck that plays to the core of what Marvel's Snap is. You do not want to be investing in the lanes that your opponent is super heavily invested in. And being able to use a Ghost Spider to reposition a ThingFS steps is an incredibly powerful play that is very difficult to beat and even harder to predict. The range you have playing a ThingFS steps on turn 5 into a potential Ghost Spider, something else, and Juggernaut is massive. This is a very, very good card in strategies like this that lack overall point output, but benefit heavily from cards that effectively say that you just win locations. And ThingFS steps is very close to an I win button on many locations. Juggernaut is very close to an I win button on many locations, and those cards' existence are what allows you to make the deck work like this, even though your point output is relatively lower. Being able to redistribute them is quite important. Surge is pretty solid here. There are some pretty bad hits and some pretty good hits. We're very much a Mysterio on 6 deck, so when you hit a Mysterio or a Juggernaut with her, you're typically not the happiest you've ever been, but Mysterio is still going to get some extra points off of that, which is nice. Hitting your 3s and getting them to 2 is really, really powerful. Getting extra weaves on your Kitty Pryde, extra points onto the board. That kind of stuff is great. Getting your ThingFS steps discounted is also pretty great, but you do, or at least presumably you will, have to worry about Shang-Chi's when you get a discounted ThingFS steps, assuming they unnerf that guy, which I think they probably will. You do have to worry about when you play a ThingFS steps on turn 4, it might get blown up later. Now, currently though, you don't have to worry about that very much, which makes this an all upside play. You basically have absolutely nothing for a move deck, and there are a fair few all-in Human Torch move decks right now. So Mercury just kind of has to be in the deck. When you have a choice of what that final tech slot is going to be, it's usually going to be between Mercury and Stardust. Stardust, I have not felt like there are a lot of good targets for, in large part because so many other people are playing Stardust. Move, I think, is maybe the best deck in the game, and if I weren't playing this, I would be playing that. And so I need a card that actually means that I don't instantly lose if my opponent draws Human Torch. It would be nice if that card were Shadow King, but he costs 3 right now, so it's not. Mysterio, Kitty Pryde, Gwenpool, Hope Summers has been a sort of semi-relevant deck core the entire time it's existed. Like, it's never been as far bad or out of the meta as you think, and I think it's worth talking about this stuff in the context of people are just defaulting to the Invisible Woman First Step Steph as the best point core for this. I don't even know if this is the best point core for this, but I do think there are some meaningful advantages that being a Mysterio deck provides you if you're going up in a Juggernaut matchup, like being able to fill up locations and make your opponent's Juggernaut matter way, 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 way less. The way this deck feels in the sort of this versus the Invisible Woman First Steps deck is that we're doing roughly the same thing, but I have a few larger, some amount more points and way less vulnerability to Juggernaut. And I think that kind of matters a ton. Like, that kind of soft, small positioning advantage is the kind of thing that really does impact how a deck feels, and being able to feel that way in this matchup is pretty solid to me. Mysterio's a big part of it. Not just the points that you get from stacking buffs on him, but the way in which he takes up spots on the final turn of the game to make it so, like, let's say you have 2 full lanes and then 1 lane with 2 units in it. Normally, their Juggernaut would win that 1 lane with 2 units in it. It doesn't do that. Here's where we get a little bit iffy, right? Like, I'm confident that there is a deck that does points better than the Invisible Woman first step stuff. I'm not overly confident that it's specifically this. Like, I think this deck is tapping into a correct analysis of the metagame and is better enough that you notice it in the heads up, but maybe there's like a wholly different version or wholly different point package that I'm overlooking. I talked about this with Derek, and he was like, actually, the point package you're overlooking for, like, if you want to play your Mercury, Mobius, Juggernaut, and ThingFS Steps deck, you could put that in like a Scream Hydra Stomper deck, and that might be even more points than this. And I think that kind of stuff, like that kind of thinking, is what I'm trying to encourage with this video. I don't want people to just see this and be like, oh, this is what I'm going to play, because there might be a better thing or a better execution of this concept than what we're talking about here. And the reason I bring this up with Elsa is because Elsa is super mid. Like, this is just a super mid card. Of all the cards in this deck, the fact that it's like an Elsa kitty deck, those are the things that really push me to believe that there just has to be a better execution of this concept. I haven't found it. I think this is a good enough execution of this concept to be worthy of the video because I've done so well with the deck, but it is worth talking about. Is there something even better? Hope Summers just feels awesome, which is weird, but she just lets you get a couple extra energy, and a deck like this really needs it because as much as I like being a Juggernaut ThingFS Steps deck, there are often things conflicting with my ability to do that, especially if you get like a late start without any of the early cards. You can find yourself feeling like you are conflicted in terms of how many points you're able to output. You sit there looking at the final turn of the game, you have both a ThingFS Steps and a Juggernaut in your hand, you can't play both, and you just feel really sad about it. A lot of what this deck really wants to do is get stuff on the board, play ThingFS Steps on 5, then do like, maneuvering and a Juggernaut on 6. That's the win con here, right? And if you don't have extra energy, sometimes that is just not something you're going to be able to execute on without notable trade-offs, right? That is where Hope Summers comes in. Giving you that extra energy really frees up the deck because so much of everything else in this deck is so cheap that you're not gonna feel all that bad about not being able to fit it in because she will give you extra energy and you will be able to fit most of it in. And I think that's really the point of Hope Summers in a deck like this. I gotta tell you, I felt like I was more impressed with her than I was with Elsa, but that's largely because when Hope is going well, your Elsa is sort of a backpacker on top of Hope because Hope allows you to play more cards. Elsa obviously wants you to do that. And so that allows you to see Hope as sort of the first order thing and Elsa as the second order. The demon himself, Mobius M. Mobius, this guy is the GOAT. He is the standard to which all other proactive tech cards are held, in as much as there is a conversation about which two of the three proactive tech cards you see a lot of right now, Mobius, Mercury, and Stardust. In as much as there is a conversation about it, I think Mobius is very clearly the best of those three. He has so much utility, and these decks are so completely unable to deal with the kind of things that he enables, or that he disables, I should say. I think right now I'm making this on the day Warlock is coming out. I mean, I think he's probably even better right now. Gwenpool is pretty solid. Really, she's here to be a Mysterio bot. A lot of the time, what I'll try to do is set up such that I have as high a chance of hitting Mysterio as possible. That does mean that sometimes I'll just like play out a Ghost Spider so it doesn't soak buffs from Mysterio. You want to hit Mysterio with this card because every Gwenpool you get onto Mysterio is effectively +6 power. It's very, very good. Now, you also do have to keep in mind that if you're tunneling on Mysterio like that, make sure that there's not a lane that has 3 units in it that a Mysterio can't win, because then you're just going to be sitting there not actually using all of that power that you got. You do have to plan ahead with this card, but she is quite good when you make her work. Juggernaut is still messed up. There's really not much else to say. Where other Juggernaut lists, like the Invisible Woman First Steps deck, focus on having powerful 2-cost cards to pair with Juggernaut, we have the luxury of being a Hope Summers deck, so we don't even necessarily need those cards to cost 2, but we have Mysterio. It got buffed by Gwenpool. Mysterio, Juggernaut, final turn, laugh to the bank. That's a pretty common thing that does happen in the absence of Hope Summers. So yeah, this guy's still great, and he's still doing all the same things he previously did. He just probably goes in a few less decks. It is important to be a Juggernaut deck. I think it it's not important. It's not good enough to just be a Juggernaut deck. To me, I sort of view, like, this is a weird sentence, but Mercury, Mobius, Juggernaut, ThingFS steps, that's the part of this deck that I feel like is the spine. That's the spine of this deck. You could almost talk me into Ghost Spider being a big part of it too, but really that's just in relation to ThingFS steps and Juggernaut, so I think it's more fair to say like that stuff is the spine. That is what this deck is about. It is about winning your locations by as little as possible with no wasted effort, and then Juggernaut is just door slam, door slam, door slam, door slam, we're done here. And then, you know, spoiler alert, that's also what ThingFS steps is. ThingFS steps has, no pun intended, really grown on me. I feel like he is one of the most underrated cards in the game, and I thought he was pretty okay when he came out, but I think I was just wrong and low by like a pretty significant margin on how good this card is. He has the clutch gene, and it really matters in relatively lower power metagames. And that's not to say he's always going to matter, but because we have cards like Stardust and Mobius and Mercury that are so effective at policing these high power metagames and preventing things from getting too stupid, it does seem like for the near future, we're going to have a space in which ThingFS steps can really excel. And I'm really in on ThingFS steps. I think he is quite good at being a good card that is not particularly vulnerable to much of anything, with a high leverage ability to be an absolute monster at winning these really clutch locations. And what I mean by that is he is a card that not only gives you sort of outs to all sorts of weird stuff, like, okay, my opponent has a Silver Surfer deck and they are going to invest in a Captain Carter lane, which means ThingFS steps gets to blow up the Captain Carter pretty easily, that kind of stuff. Or my opponent is playing an Iron Man deck. You don't really have an answer to that. My opponent is playing a Cerebro deck. These are the kind of things that ThingFS steps can deal with. And just having him in your deck is basically, it feels like you always just have like a 25% chance to just instantly win the game because you have this card in here. And the combination of him, Juggernaut, and Ghost Spider makes your final turns incredibly difficult for your opponents to figure out. You always have just a wide range of potential outcomes. All of them are really hard to figure out what you're doing and how you would even begin to beat it. And this guy being just a big guy that contests important lanes well, but also gets moved by Ghost Spider in incredibly profitable ways, he's just really strong. And I think you do need a card like this in a deck like this, because as much as this deck thrives on investing in the lanes that your opponent isn't investing in, sometimes that's just not really an option, and you need a card that's going to be able to win a lane that matters. And this guy's really good at that. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, maybe learned something, maybe didn't. If you did or didn't, and you still made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal, and let's get into some gameplay. Amazing. You love to see it. You do. Oh, he's ramping. I get it, I think. Oh man, that would have been real cool if we had the cards that it was good with. How come we're playing Thing over Squatch? Because it's fucking cool, dude. That's why.
Opponent snapped.
I'm assuming some fuck shit is happening here. Nice.
All systems go.
Seems good. I'm assuming it is a big guy that is not big enough. I had to guess. Yep. That's a big guy that is definitely not big enough. That is correct. Ah, fuck. I forgot what this guy's playing. I really wish I had a better memory for this shit. I wish I had a better memory for this crap. Noted. Pretty good limbo for them if it is mill. Has to be a snap here, surely. I wish it were true. Oh, God. She's doing this thing. Fascinating. They get my surge. And my juggernaut, and then I draw my thing. Which I think I'm very fine with. Seems good. What is happening here? What do they have? Juggernaut or something? Oh. Weird. Yeah, I mean, they're dead.
It's clobbering time.
I did not understand the snap at the time, and I don't understand to. The more I think, man, it would be nice if, I'm just going to say that's not happening. I don't know how much it matters. I'm going to prioritize it over a surge here. Fair enough. Hello. Okay, I get it. It's Mr. fucking face down over here. It's, the 4/7, right? Oh, it's not the 4/7. Well, that's kind of fascinating.
Opponent snapped.
Oh. It's Cerebro 6? Does Monster Metropolis fuck them somehow? there's some methodology by which Monster Metropolis shits on them. Does that work or no? Like, if they have something here with 9, Cerebro doesn't work through it, correct? Does anybody know the actual answer here? Will Jugg move cards? I would imagine the answer is yes. But I don't actually know. Let's just science this one. Should we science it, chat? It does mess him up. I have no idea. I'm just sciencing here. I have no idea what happens. Nine. Okay, so it should fuck him. Ah! Science! Yeah, Mr. White!
Victory.
Yeah, science! I was pretty sure this all worked, but the layering on Monster Met W thing. Yeah. My guy. Putting the work in. Kabool! My cards are honestly all kind of pretty middling at that point. Got it. Probably get like my Kitty or my Mysterio or some shit. Not having a 2 is bad in this tech. Nothing that could possibly come out is good. Weirdly chill on that one.
Opponent snapped.
What do you suppose the snap's about? Counterpoint, I'm not a coward. Yeah, I mean, they have my Bob and my Kitty Pride. Those cards are not good. The fuck is in the rest of their deck? Oh, they got Gore Mystique. What the fuck? How is that legally a play you're allowed to make? We're extremely chilling here. I've never seen anyone be more chill than us.
It's clobbering time.
I've never seen anything like it. It was just fucking Gore Kitty. What are you doing?
Victory.
Chat. Get out of here. He already knows my hand, and he knows my entire deck. The price I pay for viewership, man. Okay. Get this gimmick the fuck out of here, brother. It's actually quite solid. If you remove the context of they have a Castle Blackstone, so I'm probably owned, this hand does some pretty interesting shit. Do we have Gwenpool into ThingFS steps? How could anything ever be bad? Gwenpool into more than ThingFS. How do I handle this, actually? I'm a little fascinated. Probably blow up the middle one if I had to guess. Not what I would have expected. Something like that, probably. They got 10 energy. It's a shitload. This is actually fine. Incredibly, that's a chill thing for us to have happen. I think. I'm fairly sure we win that right lane by 1 point. Oh, we should check the copycat just to make sure we're not shittered. No, we're not shittered. They couldn't activate it. Beast mode. Beast mode! Another ThingFS steps Dubatron coming in hot here. Another ThingFS steps perma dub out happening here. 100% Jugg. It's just all Jugg all the time. The only thing this deck gives a shit about. This dude and this dude. ThingFS steps. Sometimes it's also Goat Spider. Oh. No Mobius against the Boom Boom Man. No Mobius against the Boom Boom Man. I can't say I feel great about this. In fact, I would say I feel not great about this. What the fuck do we suppose was in their hand, man? It's gonna be like 2 deaths. Yeah, no Mobius against the Boom Boom Man. Not what we want to see. Kind of need that Mobius, or things get dicey. Okay, that is quite good. That's honestly about as good as I could have asked anything to ever be. Are we allowed? They snap this. Okay, so that's actually pretty interesting. No deaths. Do people just make shit up? No, I'm just more right than everyone else is.
What a game!
There's one guy who uses data and you say he is unreliable. I actually don't think that's a crazy take. I actually think that's like genuinely not an insane take. Maybe I'm off base, but I think that's like a pretty reasonable take to have. I actually think that specifically looking at untapped and only using those will get you bad information. It's no left, I assume. I mean, I don't know. The thing about null left is we can beat just null left. Like, we have a play that beats just null left. If we assume that's what's going on. If they do literally anything else, we're fucked. See, the reason we literally aren't even supposed to play the Juggernaut here because of how hard this beats just null left. Like, we're sitting on a Juggernaut.